You guys are joining. Welcome to the first episode of Sips and Tips, where I'm going to sip some coffee, answer some questions, give you guys some tips around injury, strength training, fitness, all that fun stuff. So if you're joining, a couple ways you can ask questions. You can ask them in the chat, comment them, and I'll pull some of those questions and answer them. The other way is I'm pretty sure we can add you into the actual live if you want to come on, show your face, chat a little bit with me, ask the question. That would be my favorite way to do this because I would love to see some more people. But if not, all good. I can answer questions in the comments and or answer the questions that I had submitted prior to this, which thank you to the people that did submit a couple questions for me. That gives me something to actually answer on this first episode of Sips and Tips. So a little bit about me, guys. I'm one of the owners of the Movement Physio and Performance. I'm also a physiotherapist. I've been working in the health space since 2017, where I was working as a strength conditioning coach, then a physiotherapist. I've been training in some capacity since I was 15. I remember summer of grade 8 going into grade 9 was the first time I ever picked up weights. So not saying I have all the answers here, but I definitely have had some experience. I've learned a lot over my career as a physiotherapist in the last 5 years. And one of my favorite formats is podcasting. We've had a podcast, Will and I, my other business partner, where we share our thoughts on the profession of physiotherapy. One of my favorite things about working with clients is educating them and answering their questions. And I also really love coffee. So that is what inspired this live show, Sips and Tips, where I answer your questions that you have. So again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. Lauren, what's up? Pete, what's up? Appreciate you guys for showing up. So if you guys have any questions, drop them. If not, I'm going to start answering some of the questions that were submitted beforehand. Another little thing here. If you're dealing with an injury and you're asking a question, remember this is just a little tip. This is not full-blown medical advice. I think if you're dealing with anything, you're struggling with something, the best thing to do is find someone that is local to you or that knows your goals and can support you. If you're in Hamilton, Dundas, Brantford, we can do that for you at the Movement. But if not, reach out. We can get you in contact with somebody. But it's really important to get an actual assessment. These little tips that I'm going to give you guys are not the be-all, end-all to, improving your injury or your situation. Just some of my thoughts. So we're going to dive into the first question here. This was submitted by one of my friends, Melissa. She asked, what's your take on how to do rest days right? Necessary to prevent injury, but derails my momentum. I feel like these questions that got asked me were like cutting me right to my soul because these are all things that I really struggle with. When it comes to what my take is on rest days, it's definitely shifted over the course of my fitness journey, my performance journey, and my physiotherapy journey. I think if you would have asked me this question maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have said, I don't like rest days. I don't think they're for me. I'm going to push my body. I'm going to go hard. But what I've learned is that rest days are actually very important to allowing for you to perform at your best. So I think sometimes we think that if we're not always doing something that we are not making progress, but a lot of times we need to slow down, let the body recover so that we can then go the next day and put an effort out at that same intensity, if not more than the previous session. And I think what happens is we get in this all or nothing mindset, which I have many times, and that ends up resulting in burning out, going too hard, and having injury. And I think the name of the game to fitness or performance is consistency. So if you can be training consistently over a year and making progress versus training for 3 weeks, not taking rest days, injuring yourself, having to take time off and not train the way you want to, ramp back up, injure yourself, have to take time off, and not be able to ramp back up again. That's not productive, where if you're consistently stacking progress over the course of weeks, months, and even years, that is going to improve your fitness, more than likely allow you to reach your goals. It's going to reduce the risk of your injury. So I really think rest days are super important. I learned this probably 2 years ago where I ran into a running related injury trying to prepare for a marathon by overdoing it. And after I realized I need to manage my recovery a lot better, which includes rest days, I was able then to stack a year's worth of marathon training, and I had the best results that I ever had. I PR'd my marathon. I got it down from a 3:30 to a 3:10. Was able to run consistently for a whole year. So I think recovery and rest days are super important to actually being consistent, which is the key to training. Now, in terms of it derailing your momentum, I think you have to shift your mindset around what recovery looks like. Don't think of it as something that is a negative or derailing. Think of it of a way as resetting and revamping your body to go put out another effort at a very, very high level. So shifting your mindset around that, I think, is important. And do stuff that's fun on your rest days. Get out for a walk. Maybe it's an easy cycle. Maybe it's doing a yoga. Maybe it's playing with your cats. Whatever it may be, I think embracing those rest days, looking at them as a positive to revamp, not derail, is going to be super important. It's a great question. Cuts me deep. The next question was from Erin. She asked, tips for giving patients, I like to use the word clients, cardio, small and achievable for when injured and can't play their sport. Yeah, this is always a tough one, right? I think my number one, one of my number one principles when it comes to rehab and injury and working with clients is that I want to keep them as active as possible and doing what they want to do as closely as possible to their activity as we can based off their injury. So I'm the last person that wants to remove things, take things away from people. I think it's super important that we keep people doing part of what they enjoy while they're going through the rehab process. However, sometimes that has to change. And I think what's important is, like, let's say, for example, you're working with someone who's a runner and now they no longer can run. Trying to find something that they enjoy to supplement that is the first thing that I always go with. So whatever it is that they are going to enjoy and commit to is probably the best way to do it. So if that means riding the bike, something they actually like, they're going to show up and they're going to do that, that's something that I'll choose. If it's swimming, which most of the time it's not swimming, but if it is swimming, well, I'll have them do that. So really trying to find something that they like and they enjoy, because they like and they enjoy it, they're more likely to do it. In terms of tips for like small achievable goals, it's like, I would just start off with whatever's manageable. A lot of times if people are dealing with pain and injury and they're trying to do some form of cardio, let's say ride the bike, I usually try to have them get an idea of where their tolerance to doing that activity is. So if they know they can ride the bike for 20 minutes before their pain comes on, that becomes the goal that we aim for our sessions. If it's 10 minutes, it's 10 minutes. If it's 5 minutes, whatever it is, just starting them off doing a small bit as they can and then slowly progressing that as we go is probably the best way that I would look at making small achievable goals. And then you can have fun with it, right? You can structure the cardio session to have a little bit of intervals in it, a little bit of intensity, gamify it. Those are all little things that I'll implement to make sure that, I help clients, stay motivated when they're doing cardio and things that they don't necessarily want to do. We're getting some questions here in the live. I did not plant this question. Maybe I did. Lauren, thank you for the question. She is the client experience manager at the movement. If you've ever called the movement, you more than likely spoke to Lauren. She's a superstar. We love Lauren. Her question was how to differentiate between injury versus soreness. When do we need rest days versus when do we need to come in for care? This is a great question, Lauren. So a couple things here. So how do we differentiate between injury and soreness? This is always a tough one, right? And I think the number one thing that I look at for people, or I have people evaluating themselves, is if this pain is influencing their activities of daily living, it's preventing you from, let's say, walking appropriately, lifting your arm appropriately over your head, you're unable to move through your normal functional range of motion and activities of daily living, and that is causing you discomfort and restricting you from doing that, then more than likely it's probably something worth addressing. Sometimes you can work out so hard and be super sore that you can't lift your arms above your head. Totally get it, but it's all context dependent. If you just went so hard the day before and now you can't lift your arm over your head because your muscles are sore, probably not an injury. If it's restricting, it's painful, it's sharp, there's shooting pain, it's persistent, it's getting worse as you do more. Those are all probably signs that it's maybe more of an injury. And I think in this case, if you are unsure, it's a great opportunity to come in and get an assessment. I think sometimes we think that, we need to be so debilitated before we come to physio to work with someone or to work with a physio. That's not the case. If you're unsure about what's going on with your body, you're concerned, you're worried it's going to derail your progress, just come in. It could be as simple as doing a quick assessment, giving you some things to think about, and a lot of times just reassuring you that it's fine, you're just sore. With regards to when do we need rest days versus when do we need to come in for care, again, I think you need to come in for care if this is persisting and impacting your sports, your activity, your performance, your activities of daily living, and that is consistently happening. If you're waking up day after day and those things are impacted and it's not getting better, come in. I'm a bit biased, but I think you should come in and see a healthcare professional and a physiotherapist a lot sooner than we normally do, because oftentimes people wait too long, even if there isn't a big problem. Getting in front of the right person that can say, hey, you're all good, do your thing, or hey, here are some things we need to work on. I think that is really important. With regards to rest days, I just kind of hit on this in the previous question, the previous question. And honestly, I think if we are evaluating, and Lauren, I know this for you, if you are honestly considering a rest day and you're thinking about it, you probably need a rest day. I think we know intuitively, deep down that we've been pushing things. So if you have a thought that you need a rest day, if you're feeling overworked, if you're feeling fatigued, if it's hard for you to stay focused, if it's hard for you to do daily tasks, and you're really sore and exerted doing that stuff, just take a rest day. It's all good. Let's see here. Pete, building on Lauren's comment above, an original rest day, how do you know you're training hard enough or on hard/heavy days? How do you build an understanding of what is far enough? Yeah, this is a great question, Pete, and I know this is something that you and I have talked about before. Measuring intensity for your sessions is a skill. And I think we got to view it as a skill. And a skill is something that we work at and we build over time. So for someone who's new to exercising, this is going to be really hard to know where that line is. And oftentimes if I'm guiding someone through this or you're just starting, I think making sure that you start easy, even if you feel more capable, starting easy to get a sense for how your body responds to the load. Because a lot of times we respond a lot more sensitively to load when we first start versus when we're 3 months, 6 months, a year into training. So I think if you're just starting out, start slow, see how your body responds so you can learn what that looks like. For someone like you, Pete, who's been training now for years, you've learned a lot about your body. You've started to understand a little bit more about hey, how do I feel when I'm squatting, when I'm deadlifting, when I'm shoulder pressing, and you have an idea of what those loads are that are challenging for you. This is where I think using something like reps in reserve, which is something that we've talked about before, is a good way of measuring intensity. And what reps in reserve is let's say we give you back squat. We want you to do, a set of 6 reps. You want to have around 2 reps in reserve when you get to that 6th rep. So if you have 225 pounds on the bar, you get to that 6th rep and you feel like you could have done 6 more, that's probably a sign that we need to go up. That intensity might not be enough for what we're trying to get out of that workout. So you might want to increase your load. The vice versa could happen. Maybe you throw 300 pounds on the bar and it's supposed to be a set of 6. You get to that set of 6 and that is your absolute max. That is probably a little bit too high of an intensity for what we're looking for. We might want to back off that. So I like reps in reserve because it can change on a day-to-day basis and a week-to-week basis based on multiple factors. If you wake up and you're tired, if you didn't have a good sleep, if your kids kept you up, if you're stressed, that's going to impact your ability to lift heavy. And on that day, you might not have as much in the tank and you need to auto-regulate that, versus some days where you show up, you've crushed your pre-workout, you're feeling really good, and you can go in and you can hammer that, and maybe you're pushing heavier weights. I think it's important to slowly progress this over time. So maybe we're starting at the first week of your program with a higher reps in reserve where loads aren't intense, and then slowly we are working that down. And then sometimes, you just got to go for it. And I think this is where training history is important. Someone like you, Pete, who's been training for a really long time, I would actually have periods of time where I say, hey, let's just go for this. Let's just try to get to a max top set and see where you fall. How do you feel? How do you recover from that? And then we can use that as a baseline. I think a lot of times we want this one answer, and most of the time with most things in life, especially training, it's a skill that you build over time. So, building the understanding of intensity and recovery is going to be a skill that you build over time, and you build skills by implementing them, learning. Oftentimes you're going to make mistakes. That's okay. Let's see. Part 2. So much social media content, not necessarily yours, says you aren't training hard enough. Yeah. Yep. I agree. I think that can be a challenge, right? I think the most important thing to remember when consuming content is that this is just a snapshot. They don't know you. They don't know the nuances about you. So it can be a little bit challenging to know, what is the right information? Am I pushing hard enough? I do tend to agree sometimes that, and again, this is very context dependent, but what I see a lot, especially with strength training, is that people are underloading themselves. They're scared to push their body because of some of the misconceptions they have around strength training, around injury, how it's bad for you, how you get injured doing these things. So I think a lot of times when people are new to strength training, they're actually underdosing or underloading themselves. And I would agree with the sense that they need to push themselves harder, but there needs to be intention around how you're pushing yourself harder. You can't just go into the gym every single day and push yourself to the absolute max. That is going to eventually lead to injury. You probably are going to make some really good progress for a period of time, but eventually you're going to run into injury. It's just inevitable. It's just the way that it goes. And like I said before, the best thing you can do for your performance and for goals and gains and all that stuff is to be consistently training for months and years, not for days and weeks. And so I think trying to slowly implement these things. It's okay if you go into the gym one day and you leave the gym and it doesn't feel like you left it out on the floor. Actually, I would say probably a higher percentage of time should be like that. But I would say there are a small percentage of times where you need to go in there and you need to absolutely give it your all and leave yourself on the floor or walking out of that gym being like, now that was some hard work. I would say that would probably be 20% of the time, 80% of the time you should be going in, hitting the workouts that you've been given, getting a sweat on, getting your pump on, getting some good numbers up, and then focusing on recovery so you can show up for the next day. I think you have to have an honest conversation with yourself. Again, I think deep down inside, we know when we're not giving our best effort, and we know when we are giving our best effort. So you got to be honest with yourself. And then lastly, just get some guidance. If you're new to strength training or you're trying to accomplish some goal, get a coach who can help you learn if you're pushing hard enough or if you're not pushing hard enough. And you don't have to do that forever, but it could be a good idea to work with a coach for 3 months, 6 months, and have them help you understand your body, understand when you're pushing hard and when you're not. Yeah, social media can get you, although I'm contributing to social media all the time. Let's see. I worry I don't go hard enough, but I also finish 3 times 6 heavy squats and can't stand up or walk with a board / bag legs. Yeah, Pete, I know you're going hard enough, man. Trust me. I think you do a pretty good job at this. And we've worked on probably making sure that you stay as consistent as possible. And we've seen the more consistent you stay, the stronger you get. So I had another question here. Best tips to help guide patients and athletes to recognize fatigue and signs of poor recovery. This is a common question that we've had today. A lot of insights into what does recovery look like? How do we know when we're fatigued? How do we know when we need a rest day? So I think the easiest thing for me to kind of explain it is maybe how I look at this for myself, and how maybe I start to implement it a little bit for our clients. So I look at it in two buckets. I look at it subjectively and I look at it objectively. So subjectively, how am I feeling when I wake up? Where are my energy levels? How am I feeling just like mentally? Am I in a good headspace? Do I feel energized? I think like taking an honest evaluation of that is really important. Now, I could probably do a better job of subjectively tracking these things. And one thing that you could maybe have your clients do is you could give them a couple of these things that they rate on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being, I have no energy, 10 being the most energy that I have, and have them track that over time to see what their subjective evaluation of their fatigue and energy levels are. You could even have them subjectively, just track like, did I eat all my meals today? Did I drink all my water? To get a little bit of an insight into like where their nutrition is at, because we know how big of a factor that is for recovery. But subjectively, I would track those things and or consider them every day before I go into, a training session. The other thing that I like to use is Whoop. So nowadays we have a ton of ways to objectively track our data, whether you're using the phone, whether you're using an Apple Watch, whether you're using a Whoop, an Oura Ring. A lot of people are open to objectively tracking their data and already do it. And I think it's a great tool to use in conjunction with subjectively how you feel. So I'll use objective data like my Whoop to give me insight into like, where is my actual rest at? Where is my HRV and my heart rate at? If I wake up and I'm feeling really shitty, I'm feeling lack of energy, I'm not feeling motivated, and then I look at my Whoop and I'm also not getting good sleep, my stress levels are up, and my HRV is down, there's probably a sign there that I'm pushing myself, and that I need to consider maybe taking a rest day. The other thing is then I would look at my actual training. So if I'm in the training and I'm at a peak week of marathon prep and my Whoop recovery score is low and subjectively I'm not feeling super hot, I would probably highly consider taking a rest. Now, I would highly consider it, doesn't mean that I do it, but I would highly consider it, and I would highly consider your clients to think about taking a rest. So I think it's always looking at subjective feedback, objective feedback, comparing those, and then making a decision. So like, it really depends on the context of the client, depends on your situation. Sometimes I'm looking at all those numbers and I just know I got to get this work done because I want to hit some goals. I'm willing to risk maybe pushing my body and having a potential injury because that goal is really important to me. On the other front, if it's maybe not something that is as important to me and these numbers are showing that I probably need to take a rest day, I should take a rest day. So I think just having your clients learn how to monitor things subjectively, objectively if they can, and then help them to learn how to make the best decisions possible. And I know I'm harping on this a lot, but it's a skill. It's going to take time. And this is why I think as a client or as an individual who's watching this, who's struggling with making those decisions and constantly finds themselves fatigued, not recovering well, and injuring themselves, you should probably get some guidance on how to learn how to make these decisions and manage these things, because that is going to be a skill that you can implement across time. I think majority of people just don't have those skills built, and they haven't made the mistakes and learned from them to implement them going forward. And one thing that we always talk about at the movement is we're really trying to empower people to take control of their health. And when it comes to empowering, that's giving you the tools, you the skill sets, you the decision-making process to actually make choices for yourself so that you can feel empowered to go out and do your thing on your own. So I know I've been ranting a lot. Definitely common theme today around like recovery, intensity, how do I know when to take a rest day? And guys, this is all stuff that I'm working on. As I'm currently coming off an injury that I had from probably overtraining and pushing myself a little bit too hard last year, going for a sub 3 hour marathon. So I'm not perfect at this, but I am learning, and I try to take what I learn and apply it to people who are watching this video, people who are my clients. So take it as you will. I think we're going to wrap it up there if we don't have any other questions. Can you share 3 or 4 key bullets on 24 to 48 hours off an injury? Ice versus heat, mobilize site versus lock it down, sling, tense, or wrap. Is it different for people like athletes versus my typical friend, family member? Yeah, good question. I think, again, it really depends on the acute level of the injury. If you literally fell off your mountain bike and slammed your shoulder into the ground and there's the potential for a fracture and or some type of dislocation or actual tissue tear, I would probably consider mobilizing that thing and getting into a healthcare professional to make sure that you're doing things the right way. If it's not something that was as acute as something like that, maybe you woke up and your back is sore, maybe you woke up and you have knee pain, bending your knee, you don't have good range of motion. I think within the first 24 to 48 hours of those types of injuries, I'm a big fan of, one, resting. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking time off. 2, I think moving your body is important. So with something like low back pain or, just like knee pain in the front of the knee that was an onset from workouts that you've done, I think slowly and gently moving those tissues through range of motion is something that I would do. Ideally, it is pain-free to start, just being able to move the tissue. I think that's the second thing. So first thing, if it's super acute, you fall off your mountain bike, you slam your shoulder, go see a healthcare professional, mobilize it. If it's not that, it's a kind of an insidious onset, your low back is sore when you wake up, your knee is sore, try to find a pain-free range of motion to keep the joint, the body moving in. I think, ice, heat, tape, icy hot, all that stuff is a good way to reduce sensitivity, reduce pain. It's going to modulate those things. Do what works best for you, what you find reduces it. I tend to find with like low back stiffness, pain, nerve pain, like heat works better for people most of the time. For things like, an acute knee pain, like ice can kind of help reduce the pain. Honestly, it's more of just an analgesic that helps give you some pain relief. So whatever feels better for you, I would implement some of that. And then honestly, regardless, it's like, I really do think within that 48-hour time window, if things are not seeing improvement with like that range of motion and that movement, like just get in to see someone that can give you some things to get started on. A lot of times these injuries can be managed really well if we get guidance right away. So I think trying to jump in and seeing someone within that 48-hour window, even if you're starting to feel better, is the way to go. So thanks guys for tuning in for the first episode of Sips and Tips. I'm working on it. Episode 1 is in the books. Thank you guys for joining. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for asking questions in the chat. Thank you guys who submitted questions before. One thing that we are trying to do this year is build up our YouTube channel. So I'm going to take the recording of this live video and I'm going to post it on our YouTube channel so people can go and look back on it and see it if you weren't able to join live, as I see more people coming in. So if you could head over to our YouTube channel, The Movement, it's in our Instagram bio. You can click it. We have a recent video out there that we did around the bay. You can subscribe to that channel. I'm going to post the recordings of Sips and Tips there. So this is episode 1 down. If you guys have questions that you want me to answer on the next show, submit them. You can send me a DM here on Instagram. You can come on the live show. We're going to run it back next week. You can drop it in the comments. I am hoping that I can get some people to come on this beautiful screen with me and ask some questions at some point. But I get a lot of times we don't want to show our face. So I appreciate you guys asking the questions in the comments. Tell your friends about Sips and Tips. I'm going to be answering questions, give you my thoughts. Again, this is not like, go implement this. This is like this is not like the be-all, end-all medical advice. If you're dealing with an injury that isn't getting better, go see someone. Take my tips with a grain of salt, apply them, but go get some guidance. Injury is nuanced. You need to get someone that knows you, knows your body, knows what's going on in your life. There's so many factors that influence pain. So please, please get some help if you're dealing with injury. That's all I got for today, guys. Thanks for joining. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.